You are not lazy. You are not ungrateful. You are not doing it wrong. You are exhausted in a way that sleep does not fix. You are behind in a way that trying harder does not solve. You are lonely in a way that does not make sense, because you are surrounded by people who love you. And somewhere underneath all of it, underneath the exhaustion and the guilt, and the constant feeling that you are one bad day away from completely falling apart, there is a question you are almost afraid to ask out loud. Why is this so hard? Not hard like challenging, hard like impossible. Hard like no matter how much you give it is never quite enough. Hard like you were handed a job with no training, no support, no breaks, and an audience of millions waiting to judge every single mistake. Here is the answer nobody around you is saying clearly enough. You are not failing at parenting. You are succeeding at surviving something that no human being was ever meant to do alone. For the vast majority of human history, for hundreds of thousands of years before anyone alive today was born, nobody raised children the way modern America asks you to raise them. Not even close. A mother did not wake up alone in a house, solely responsible for keeping a small human alive, while simultaneously managing a home, maintaining a career, staying connected to a partner, keeping up with finances, and presenting a version of herself to the world that looked like she had everything under control. That did not exist. That has never existed in the entire history of our species until extremely recently. What existed was something completely different, something the human brain evolved inside of, something that made parenting not easy, because parenting was never easy, but possible, sustainable, shared. And modern America systematically removed it. Every piece of it. There are 5 specific things that modern American life has taken away from parents. 5 things that the human brain evolved to depend on in order to raise children without breaking. Each one of them has been quietly removed, replaced with something that looks similar on the surface, but produces a completely different experience inside the nervous system. And when you understand what those 5 things are, when you can finally name what is missing, the weight you have been carrying stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like exactly what it is, a completely rational response to an impossible situation. Anthropologists who study how human beings have raised children across different cultures and different periods of history keep finding the same thing. Human children were never raised by 2 people. They were raised by a group. A community, a rotating network of grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, neighbors, and trusted adults who shared the physical and emotional labor of keeping small children alive and helping them grow. Researchers call this the village model, and the evidence for it is everywhere, in indigenous communities that still practice it today, in the anthropological record of how our ancestors lived, in the biology of the human infant itself. A human baby is born more helpless than the newborn of almost any other species, unable to walk, unable to feed itself, unable to regulate its own body temperature or nervous system for years after birth. The developmental window of human childhood is extraordinarily long. That level of helplessness and that length of dependency was never designed to be managed by 1 or 2 people. It was designed for a village. And when you take a parent whose brain evolved to function inside that village and place them alone in a house with a baby and tell them to figure it out, the nervous system does not adapt. It does not rise to the challenge. It struggles. Every single day. Because it is being asked to do something it was never built to do. Missing piece 1. The village, the most fundamental thing modern American parenting has lost, is other people. Not acquaintances. Not social media followers. Not the occasional play date or the pediatrician you see 4 times a year. Physically present, consistently available, genuinely invested human beings who share the daily reality of raising your child with you. The village was not a nice extra. It was not a support system for parents who could not manage on their own. It was the basic operating structure of human child rearing. The thing the whole process was built around. When the village disappeared, when the nuclear family became the standard unit and extended families spread across cities and states and time zones, parents did not get a replacement for what was lost. They just got the loss, and then got told that the loneliness and exhaustion they felt was something to manage better. Missing piece 2. Intergenerational wisdom before the nuclear family became the norm. New parents did not have to figure out parenting from scratch. They were surrounded by people who had done it before, grandmothers who had raised 5 children and knew from experience what was normal and what was not. Aunts who had watched dozens of babies pass through difficult phases and come out the other side. Older mothers in the community who could look at a crying baby and say, "This is teeth, not illness," and be right, because they had seen it 100 times. That knowledge did not come from books. It did not come from apps or parenting podcasts or late-night searches on the internet. It came from proximity, from generations living close enough to pass what they had learned directly into the hands of the people who needed it next. Modern American parents have access to more parenting information than any generation in history, and they feel less confident than any generation in history because information is not wisdom. And a search result is not a grandmother sitting next to you at 2 in the morning telling you that you are doing fine. Missing piece 3. Economic safety here is something that research makes very clear and that almost nobody talks about honestly enough. Financial stress does not just make life harder. It physically changes the brain. Studies on the neuroscience of financial pressure have found that worrying about money reduces available cognitive capacity in a measurable way. It narrows attention. It increases the stress hormone cortisol. It reduces the ability to regulate emotions. In other words, a parent who is stressed about money is not just emotionally burdened. Their brain is literally operating with less capacity for patience, less capacity for emotional regulation, less capacity for the kind of warm and responsive parenting that children need. And in modern America, financial pressure on families is not an exception. It is the norm. The cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of health care, the complete absence of guaranteed paid parental leave, the expectation that both parents work full-time while somehow also being fully present and emotionally available for their children. The economic structure of modern American family life is not neutral. It is actively working against the neurological conditions that good parenting requires. Missing piece 4. Rest. The human brain does not function without rest. This is not a preference. It is biology. And yet modern American parenting culture treats rest as something you earn after everything else is done, as a reward for productivity, as something selfish to want before the laundry is folded and the meals are prepped and the work emails are answered and the baby is finally asleep. Sleep deprivation at the level most new parents experience does not just make you tired. It impairs memory, emotional regulation, decision-making, and patience, which happen to be the exact 4 things parenting requires most. Parenting without rest is not a character test. It is a neurological impossibility. And a culture that celebrates how little sleep parents get, that treats exhaustion as a badge of dedication, is a culture that has completely lost the plot on what children actually need from their parents. A rested parent. Not a perfect one, a rested one. Missing piece 5. Permission to be imperfect. There used to be a safe space inside parenting. A private space where the mess and the mistakes and the hard days stayed between the people who lived them. Social media ended that. Now, every parenting decision is visible. Every choice is a potential post, and every post is a potential judgment. The highlight reels of other parents' best moments play on a loop inside the pocket of every parent who is currently living through their worst ones. And the standard being set, the curated, filtered, perfectly lit version of parenthood that fills every feed, is not real. It has never been real. But it feels real at 3 in the morning when you are sitting on the floor of a nursery wondering why you cannot hold it together the way everyone else seems to. The loss of permission to be imperfect is not a small thing. It is the loss of the last psychological safety net parenting had. Here is the part that makes all of this urgent beyond just the parent's well-being. Chronic parenting stress does not stay with the parent. Research on stress transfer in families shows clearly that a parent who is operating in a constant state of stress, overwhelmed, undersupported, financially pressured, sleep-deprived, and socially isolated, passes that stress directly into the nervous system of their child. Not through bad parenting, through biology, through the physiological synchrony we know exists between parent and child, through the quality of presence that stress makes almost impossible to sustain. The broken system does not just break parents. It flows directly into the children those parents are trying so hard to protect. This is not said to add another weight. It is said because it is the most honest argument for why this conversation matters. The child's nervous system needs a regulated parent, and a regulated parent needs a supported one. Every time you lost your patience, that was a symptom. Every time you hid in the bathroom for 5 minutes because you could not take one more demand, that was a symptom. Every time you looked at your child and felt something other than pure love and felt immediately guilty for feeling it, that was a symptom. Not of a broken parent, of a broken system that took everything parenting needs to work and quietly removed it one piece at a time while telling every parent that the difficulty they felt was their own fault. You were never failing. You were responding, rationally, predictably, exactly as any human being would respond to being asked to do the impossible without the tools the job requires. Now here is where some people will push back, and they deserve a real answer. Is this just an excuse? Is naming the system a way of avoiding personal responsibility? Does talking about what is broken let individual parents off the hook for their own choices? No. Naming the problem is not the same as surrendering to it. Understanding why something is hard is the first and most essential step to changing how you approach it. A parent who understands that their exhaustion is structural, not personal, can stop spending their limited energy on shame and start spending it on solutions. The system is broken, and you still have to parent inside it. Both of those things are true at the same time. Understanding the first one is what makes the second one survivable. There is a term in anthropology for the way human children were always meant to be raised. It is called allomothering. It means the care of children by adults other than the biological mother. And it is not unique to humans. It appears across dozens of species where offspring require extended care. But in humans, it is not just common. According to anthropologist Sarah Hrdy, whose research has shaped the modern understanding of human child development, it is the foundation the entire human developmental model was built on. Human children were designed by evolution to be raised by multiple caregivers. The biological mother was always meant to be one important person in a network of important people, not the single point of failure for an entire human being's development. Allomothering is not a luxury. It is not a cultural preference. It is what your nervous system is still waiting for. Every single day. If this is the first time anyone has said this to you clearly, you are not alone and you are not broken. Then this channel is where you need to be. We talk about the real psychology behind parenting every single week. Hit subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Here are 3 things you can do inside the reality of modern American life to begin rebuilding what is missing. First, find one person and go deeper. Not a wider social circle. One person. A neighbor, a parent from your child's school, a friend who is also in the thick of it. And deliberately deepen that relationship beyond the surface. Share the real stuff. Ask for help with something specific. Offer the same in return. One genuine village relationship, one person who actually knows what your days look like, does more for parenting resilience than 100 casual connections. Second, protect 20 minutes of genuine rest every day. Not scrolling, not productivity. Rest. A walk, alone. Sitting quietly. Anything that allows your nervous system to come down from the constant alert state that parenting inside a broken system produces. This is not selfish. This is maintenance. A car that never gets serviced does not run better through willpower. Neither does a parent. Third, say out loud that it is hard. To someone real. Not on social media. Not in a comment section. To another parent, face-to-face, without the performance of having it together. The moment you say it and hear it said back, the moment the isolation breaks even slightly, something in the nervous system relaxes. The village is gone, but the need for it is not. And sometimes, the smallest version of it, one honest conversation, is enough to keep going. You are not a parent who is falling short. You are a parent who is carrying something that was never meant to be carried by one person. Something that for hundreds of thousands of years was distributed across an entire community of people who showed up daily, who shared the weight, who made sure no single pair of hands ever held all of it at once. The hands that are holding all of it right now, yours, were never designed to hold this much alone. That is not weakness. That is just physics. The hardest thing about parenting in modern America is not the sleepless nights. It is not the tantrums or the financial pressure, or the impossible balancing act of work and home and self. It is the silence. The silence where the village was supposed to be, where the grandmother was supposed to be sitting, where the neighbor was supposed to knock on the door, where someone was supposed to take the baby from your arms, not because you asked, not because you admitted you were struggling, but simply because they were there, and they knew and they understood that nobody does this alone. That silence is not natural. It is not inevitable. It is not what parenting is supposed to sound like. And the exhaustion you feel inside it every day is not a measure of how much you are failing. It is a measure of how much you are carrying. And how long you have been carrying it. Without anyone telling you that you were never supposed to carry it alone. If this gave you something real today, share it with a parent who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep understanding yourself and your child at this level, subscribe. Because you deserve more than survival. And so do they.